Hey everybody, it's Durger. As you can see here, had a bit of a problem with this save. And typically these episodes come out on Wednesday and give you a little behind the scenes. Typically how it ends up working is I'll film about like 2 hours of footage and cut it down to like that 45-minute video. A lot of that's nothing really happening, just me booking behind the scenes and kind of getting things ready. And I'll leave the thing running. And something happened. I don't know what this is, but we corrupted the entire file. So the entire 2.5 hours of footage is gone. I'm not sure if the video just ran too long and it processed an error. I don't know if there was a general error, but the entire file is completely corrupted. So that Rampage episode, that Dynamite episode, completely gone. Super bummer. It was really frustrating. I just literally just stepped away from my computer, just walked away, fuming mad. But I can't leave you guys like that, right? Now, I can't replay that, and I can't rebuild it because it's already happened in the save. Sometimes, if I have a backup, I can kind of replicate what we did. So this is going to be a quick video. It's not going to be very long, but what I'm going to try to give you guys is just a summary of what you missed. Because obviously our storylines are still going to go forward. Our momentum is still going to go forward. And unfortunately, spoilers, we lost a lot of momentum last episode that aired. So, with that said, let us go through our show summaries and some of the news to kind of just give you a brief recap of what you missed, so we don't have to rebuild it, and hopefully at least give you an idea. I don't have the nice flavor text. You know, I know you guys really like when I kind of write out that sort of narrative storytelling, and I certainly did that a lot in this episode, and I don't have it handy because it's kind of like lost to the ether, but I can kind of at least give you a recap of what happened during it. One of the cool things that happened in the news this week was that one of our wrestlers, let's get back to the news here. If we go to... Okay, so if you can see here, we actually have Andrade defeating Kenny Omega in Mexico City for the Mega Championship. So super cool. Change of hands. It kind of adds an interesting dynamic to our storytelling, which is what we played into in the last two shows. Obviously, we know that Hangman Page is out for another 20 days or something like that. If we look at medical here, it's not 10 more days. So, you know, he actually could return in full gear, and he probably would, but we had booked the storyline with the tournament, and he was supposed to win it, and it didn't happen. So Andrade got a bye, right? Because Hangman had to forfeit his next round. So CM Punk versus Miro happened, and we can see if we go into our show log, we'll check out Rampage and we'll check out Dynamite and kind of give you a brief rundown of what you missed. Now, this show rating got a 64, which was higher than our average, so we didn't lose any momentum chips. In this episode, we had Punk cutting a promo on Hangman having to leave the tournament and how disappointed he was because he wanted to wrestle him. Now, Punk's still a face, but we're getting a bit of a hint of maybe of resentment because during it, we're getting a lot of cowboy shit chants, right? There's a lot of a lot of fan fervor for Adam Page, and CM Punk's not used to that. He's used to being the golden child that has returned, and it seems like he's kind of like getting a little upset by it. CM Punk is adamant that he's going to win the tournament, and when he wins the AEW World Title, he will gladly face Hangman Page and, you know, put him to sleep. We have Buddy Matthews coming out to challenge in a debut against Bryan Danielson for the IWGP US Heavyweight title. We have Bray Wyatt having a promo where we see him more like a Western cult leader. I know, I love my cult leaders, but we want to bring Bray Wyatt back to sort of that roots that he had. And there's a lot of great name ideas, and I ultimately chose to go in a slightly different direction with him for now, but there is one naming convention that someone had a really great idea for, and unfortunately I don't remember who it was in the comments, so I apologize. But they were talking about the names of death, like Thanatos and Deimos and stuff like that, and being sort of this demonic force of destruction and decay. And I like the idea, but because we're going less with the supernatural and more with the sort of enigmatic cult leader, I didn't want to necessarily go that route. But I think if we ever introduce the Fiend in some capacity, I think we'll go that way. And truthfully, I can kind of see in the future a world where Bray, the cult leader, kind of feeds into this demonic force as a different persona. Like, not that he's actually supernatural, but like it's sort of that embodiment of his darkness in sort of a similar way that I suppose we're seeing with Malachi Black, right? I could kind of see that idea, but we went with more of a cult leader approach, and actually going for a specific cult leader. We're kind of going for like that Waco vibe. So we gave him a new name of Emmett Koresh. It's kind of a weird one, but I think it kind of fits his vibe of Koresh obviously being actually the leader in Waco. So we kind of harken back to an actual cult leader who's all about trying to show people the light, show people this sort of doomsayer, follow me, we'll get through this, champions of the light kind of thing. Which we're kind of going to play with Bray a little bit of, like, he's going to bring about a new order, to people. And then Emmett is one of the more popular Southern names that I felt like would kind of fit with the Wyatt kind of approach. So we're kind of harkening back to that sort of Southern Baptist, world, but also kind of a little bit of a hint to that Southwesternly vibe that we're trying to go with, that sort of Waco compound kind of thing. So we get a reveal for him. We had a mistake in our booking, because of course we did. We actually had Orange Cassidy beat Stu Grayson in a match. We actually wanted it to be the opposite, and Stu Grayson beat a fan favorite of Orange Cassidy. It did not happen. I guess they called an audible, but we wanted to kind of show that, like, under the new leadership, he had like a newfound strength and determination. Afterwards, Emmett, aka Bray Wyatt, came out and told Stu to attack Orange Cassidy. At that point, Uno came out to make the save. And then we also had a promo afterwards of Miro talking about redemption and being the Redeemer. And he had an issue with, like, I lost the title and I was God's champion. What am I anymore, right? Kind of having, and we saw a little bit of a similar promo in the real Dynamite, right? Of this sort of where he's kind of like lashing out against God. Well, we're not doing that here. He says, my God is simply giving me a test. This is not a crisis of faith. I have a match in the tournament, and you cannot be a redeemer if you do not have something to redeem, and I have something to redeem with this loss. I may have lost this title, but it is only because it's giving me a step to a greater achievement, and I will be back for my title. So he's confident that his God is leading him towards the World Championship challenge, and that determination has him easily and handily defeat Brian Cage in the second round matches, or first round matches, I believe, in a fairly solid match, the 67. This show does okay. It's enough for us to stave off that momentum creep, and ultimately does fine. It's not too bad. After that, we have a episode of Dynamite that does fairly poorly. We did some challenges, we did some little risky maneuvers here, and kind of focused on a little bit of our mid-card. One of the concerns that I had was that we have these challenges at the bottom, and I'm very concerned that we're not going to make it. One, I didn't feel like we had a lot of momentum to reach that 60 for that tag team breakup, which we focused on Stu and Uno. So I wanted to focus on that a little bit more here, because we only have a couple more weeks, and if we lose that, we lose those momentum chips, and bad things are going to happen. Unfortunately, I'm pretty resigned to the fact now that bad things are going to happen, because we lost chips here as well. In fact, we lost 3 chips in this Dynamite. So we debuted Bobby Fish, who is in Dynamite now or in AEW for real life. I think that's going to be the one that we focus on as a former WWE star, and I think we're going to put him in a feud with Brian Pillman Jr., which is kind of a risky move. And we have a little bit of the beginnings of that here, where he debuts, defeats Griff Garrison, and Griff extends a hand as a sort of a I lost, but great job, wow. Fish just kind of grins at him, strikes him, and actually knocks him out. Pillman is at ringside going, what the hell? So there's a little bit of tension and animosity between the two of them, right? We have Moxley with a great promo that I wrote, I think, but we can't see it. Where I don't think we can collect these, unfortunately. It would be great. All we get is this. It was a real bummer. But Moxley challenges Bryan Danielson at Full Gear. He says that, the gist of it was, again, that sort of idea of, it's so disgraceful to see all these companies that I carried, right? I carried the IWGP US title when the lockdowns made it, gave New Japan an uncertain future, and now they still won't even return my calls. All I want is one match with them, and they're not even calling anymore. I lost this title and never got a fair retry to challenge for it again. AEW, it was his entire legacy here, him being the AEW champion during the lockdowns, during the pandemic, carrying the company through and making sure it was successful, sacrificing his own blood and sweat for it, all to lose the title and then be relegated down to the mid-card to languish until his contract is up. And he felt like all these new toys were coming in and all these new fan favorites were coming in. He was being left to the wayside, and he will not go into that darkness, without fighting and clawing and screaming back. And what he wants with Danielson is a match that cannot be won in a simple 3 count. He wants probably an Iron Man match, I'm thinking, or 2 out of 3. I haven't decided what it's going to be, but it's going to be one of those 2. And he wants it for the IWGP US Championship. So, we're kind of at a 1-1 with Moxley and Danielson, where Danielson lost that hardcore match against Moxley. And so we're kind of going into a new element here of, who can kind of withstand the other. It's going to be kind of a cool match for Full Gear, I think. We have Britt Baker defeating Tay Conti in a exhibition match, led to her having her cronies hold down Tay Conti, and she gets her in a lockjaw, just trying to be disrespectful. Anna Jay and Thunder Rosa end up coming out to defend, and we kind of set up either like a tag thing or a triple threat kind of exhibition for the next Rampage, and building up again a Thunder Rosa versus Britt Baker match for Full Gear. We have Frankie Kazarian having a match with Dante Martin. Doesn't do very well at all. And at the end of that, Kazarian ends up reuniting with Scorpio Sky and Christopher Daniels, kind of reuniting SCU, but under a much darker leadership with the Fallen Angel. We got Jurassic Express vandalizing Christian Cage's car, continuing that Christian Cage versus Jungle Boy storyline. It's a very sports entertainment gimmick, but we did it just to kind of maintain it. Where is Malachi? Well, we have Malachi return during a media event where Cody and Brandy are talking about their reality show. The lights go out, and the production crew leaves to try to turn the breaker back on. And under the red lights of the emergency lights, we see Malachi. He attacks Cody, gets him down to the ground. Brandy jumps on top of him. She ends up getting grabbed and choked by the neck. She's asking him, what do you even want with him? Why don't we leave him alone? And Malachi just says that he wants him to end, right? He wants to tear, and of course we know what he wants. He wants to tear at the pillars that are holding up AEW, destroy the foundation. A lot of what I'm booking Malachi as in this sort of segment, obviously, this is still a continuation of the real feud that they're having, but I'm kind of going in a different direction with Malachi as a character, and I'm kind of actually basing him off of Minoru Suzuki's character and his relationship with New Japan, that he's here to torment sort of the faces of the company to prove that they're facades. And Cody's the biggest facade of them all, right? He wants to show bring out his true colors. He wants to humiliate them. He wants to show that they are nothing. They are simply masks that are being worn by weak people. So we're continuing that feud. It's going to probably culminate at Full Gear. We have a very poor, that's an average match, let's just say. Alan Angel, Stu, Grayson, and 10 with Emmett Koresh, aka Bray Wyatt, defeat Uno, Orange Cassidy, Alex Reynolds, and John Silver. So Orange Cassidy's helping them out because of the match from Rampage. Afterwards, the Fallen Order, as I've been calling the new Dark Order, get assaulted, or end up assaulting the actual Dark Order. Uno gets his mask ripped off. He has to kind of cover and hide it by Emmett, and Emmett Koresh ends up kind of gloating as he takes the mask away from him. And I'm sure we're going to hear from him later about the abduction of the mask. We have Andrade with a promo with his whole team about how he won the AAA title from Kenny Omega, acknowledging that he did have some help with his stable kind of surrounding Omega and kind of help forcing him to lose through some interference. Kenny's elite crew not with him down in Mexico, and Andrade having a united front, saying that while he is world champion of AAA and they all have gold now, they're truly not idols yet until he gets that world title, and they hold all the titles in AEW, sort of holding for the hat trick, and he's very confident he's going to face CM Punk and win, because Andrade feels that he is the true best wrestler in the world. CM Punk has a match against Miro and, surprise, defeats Miro. And Miro is an absolute shambles at the end of this segment because he was very confident this was his destiny. And while as he is in shambles, he starts to lose everything even more, with CJ Perry, who's been at his side since All Out, leaving and walking away in anger or shame. And we're seeing a very low Miro at this point. Now, we're kind of planting the seeds that, he might need guidance, that he might be looking for a higher power that won't forsake him. And we might be playing with the idea of what if he joined this new Fallen Order as Muscle, right? He's predisposed to this religious thinking, and we might have a person that's available to him that might provide him some guidance and utilize him. So we're going to start to think about that down the line of what can we do with Miro and what direction we can go with him. And perhaps it's muscle for the Fallen Order. Maybe it could also be muscle for SCU in a similar vein, but we're going to kind of start to build a different beast with the Fallen Order here. Ultimately, though, the best match on the night is CM Punk and Miro, and because we had sort of a middling show, it only gave us a 60, which was I think 6 points lower. We lost 3 momentum chips over the course of this episode. which was a real bummer. So it's rough. We had to do some things, and we were trying to build that momentum up to try to get those objectives, because we do have only 2 more weeks to handle them. In terms of those storylines, of course, we have the Uno and Stu Grayson storyline. It's only at a 48. It needs to be at a 60. We actually lost momentum with this one. So I think we're going to lose this one. We're definitely going to lose the points from that. And then Big Fish in a Little Pond, which is going to be about Pillman and Fish. We need to have a 55. We have a very short amount of time. I could probably pick somebody else with him, but I want him to be in a feud where he's going to win. And it makes more sense to have Pillman and him have a short feud and, have them have a blow-off match and have Fish win, and then we can move him to somewhere else. But I don't want him to lose his debut storyline. So it's a little rough, unfortunately, because I think we're going to end up not achieving either of these objectives. And we only have 2 more weeks to do it. Actually, we have less than 2 more weeks. So we have basically we have 2 more by the end of is it next week? No, week after next. So we still have 2 weeks to handle it. But not thrilled by the prospect, I can tell you that, because we are very close to the bottom of this chip stack. When that hits, what's going to happen is, a bad thing's going to happen. Another wheel's going to unlock, because we are playing Cody Rhodes, and Cody has his own ideas of what could happen, right, in terms of booking. And he might make maybe we have a Cody Rhodes wheel, let's just say, that has some bad booking decisions that we're going to have to follow through with, because he feels like if he has just a little bit more creative input, maybe those creative decisions can help sway AEW for the better. There's also a risk. It's not guaranteed. There's also a risk that as we lose these chip stacks, that some of our more eccentric or high maintenance workers and agents that are trying to pass along their talent to their stables, people like Taz, people like Arn Anderson, people like Jake Snake Roberts, some of these people, Dustin Rhodes. We have some of these opinions and people here that are really focused on specific wrestlers and their momentum. They may start to have a negative impact on us if they see our momentum slip and start to try to push and politic their way in to force us to book them in a way that we may not want to. It's not a guarantee that'll happen. There's sort of a random die roll that I have behind the scenes, but it could be something that's going to come into play if we start losing that momentum further. That could make it more difficult for us to book the show. Unfortunately, I think we are going to be very close for that to happen by the end of this month. So if you want that to happen, guess what? It's gonna. Anyways, that was this weird recap episode. Sorry that we didn't get the full episode out. I'm gonna look into why that happened. This has happened before, but it's been like 2 years since I used this this capture service that it had corrupted before, and it hasn't happened again. I may look into doing a backup or something like that so it doesn't happen, or break up videos into shorter ones so I lose only parts of it or something like that. It's still very much a bummer, but hopefully it's not something that happens on the regular. Now, I have a lot of real-life scheduling changes happening in my life right now, trying to get adjusted to a new work schedule. So next week's going to be a little rocky. I don't have my normal recording day anymore, and we're going to have to kind of get that readjusted. I'm going to try to record in a different day, so expect that the AEW episode to come a little bit later, and keep an eye out for NWA. It's probably not going to be next week. I'm still trying to finalize the database doing some stuff behind the scenes to update and refresh it, bring it to a newer database, because we were still playing on a very unfinished version of the beta of the Real World Chronicles. Because that save has been that old at this point that we were using a very old, incomplete, inaccurate database. So I've been moving it over, but it needs a lot of tweaking. So probably expect it maybe next week. Keep an eye out. But thank you guys for putting up with this short one. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.